Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good morning, dear attendees, eminent speakers. Good morning, all of you, on this wonderful morning. Hope your festive season went absolutely well. Today, I am with you, myself, Neeraj Arora. I am Senior Director at SOCHM, and I look after the GEM Green Building Certification Program of SOCHM. This webinar is on a very wonderful topic, which is annual pump performance test for fire pumps. And this webinar is being jointly organized by SOCHM GEM Green Building Council and Global Association for Corporate Services, GSCS. So we have a wonderful team with us. We have wonderful speakers with us for this very technical topic. Meanwhile, I would like to share with you that SOCHM GEM is the only green building certification program which has the fire and life safety also in it. So we have many green building certification programs, but SOCHM GEM Green Building Certification Program thought that fire and life safety should also be there in the green building certification program. So we have included this, and that's why this topic is very much relevant for all of us to understand. So for this, today we have with us Mr. Abasab Kale, who is the Joint Secretary of Disaster Management, GSCS, which is Global Association for Corporate Services, and he is the Executive Vice President, Consulting Solutions, Marsh Advisory, Marsh India Insurance Brokers Private Limited. We have with us Mr. Inayat Mizwan, who is the Executive Vice President, Consulting Solutions, Marsh Advisory, Marsh India Insurance Brokers Private Limited. And we have with us another very good speaker, Mr. Darshit, who is the Senior Manager, Consulting Solutions, Marsh Advisory, Marsh India Insurance Brokers Private Limited. So on behalf of SOCHM and GSCS, I welcome you all, the eminent speakers and the delegates, for this wonderful training session. And now I would like to invite Mr. Abasab Kale for his session and introducing the speakers in detail and take the session forward. Abasab, over to you.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you so much. I think it's my pleasure as Joint Secretary for Global Association for Corporate Services Disaster Management Cell to welcome all the attendees of this webinar, which is on a very important topic. I think I should compliment GEM ASSOCHAM for accepting this proposal and really working together on this important issue. And as Neeraj rightly pointed out, I think it's really important that green buildings concepts are seriously looking at this aspect, which was missing in recent past or earlier past. So thank you, Neeraj, for that consideration. Global Association for Corporate Services has always been working for facility managers, from the fraternity members, from security, HR, admin, and all the corporate services who make life comfortable and safe, working environment safe for the employees. And that's why this is a very important topic. At Disaster Management Cell of GSCS, we have been always looking at various safety aspects which will enhance those efforts. And here comes one of them. So Neeraj, thank you once again, GEM ASSOCHAM and all the members for attending as well as for supporting this cause. With this, I would love to introduce my two colleagues. Inayat Mizwan. Inayat, with bachelor degree in chemical engineering from Nagpur University, started his career with Reliance Industries Limited way back in 2006, and later moved to risk consulting industry and worked with a well-known commercial insurance company FM Global, and now with Marsh India with consulting solution divisions, Marsh Advisory of Marsh India. With 14 years of experience and senior risk consultant at Marsh, he specializes in designing and reviewing fire protection systems, risk consultation on new construction and brownfield projects, natural catastrophe evaluations, exposure evaluations, property loss prevention and property risk consulting programs, due diligence visits prior to acquisitions. These are important aspects of his profile. We have another smart and young gentleman with us, Mr. Darshit. Darshit is a loss prevention consultant with 7 years of experience in carrying out loss prevention activities like conducting audits to identify the risk, quantify the risk, and minimizing the risk to an acceptable level. Prior to joining Marsh India, he was working with AIG. His expertise in fire protection system design, emergency response planning and management, knowledge of fire safety installation requirements as per global and local loss prevention standards, and knowledge of business interruption in these industries have helped clients identify potential risks and hazards pertaining to fire safety at their premises, and also to bring down the loss expectancies and exposures. Darshit holds a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering and is also certified in finite element analysis from the Indian Institute of Science. With this introduction, I hand over this session to Inayat and Darshit, and I request all of you attendees, if you have any question related to any aspect which is covered during this particular presentation, please post that question in Q&A tab. At the end of this particular session, we are going to address those questions. So thank you once again. Over to you, Inayat and Darshit.
Thank you, Abbas Sahib, for the brief introduction. Before we move on to our subject, which is annual pump performance test, a small disclaimer: the information which is provided in this presentation are based on our experience and just for the information purpose only. Please do not consider this as a final advice or a recommendation, as the situation may differ from side to side. Now coming back to our presentation. So next slide, please. So this is our agenda, where we will have we will discuss the need. When I say need for the it is for the fire pump performance testing. What are the typical pump room installation which are important for the testing, testing methods, and then my colleague Darshit will take you over for the annual fire pump performance testing, the requirements, how it needs to be done, the procedures, and then what are the typical reason for underperformance of those fire pumps, if at all that is the case. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so let's start with the need. So when we say fire pump, so the most important thing is we all understand that fire pump is the heart of any fire protection system. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, when we talk about performance of a fire pump, so how we basically judge a performance of a fire pump. So there are several characteristics. Now, the first important thing is how we have designed the fire pump. Whether the fire pump is designed considering the highest demand for the sprinkler system, whether the fire pump has been designed considering the highest demand for the deluge, hydrant, or hose rate, or there could be some combination where fire pump, there is a single fire pump system which is catering to both automatic fire protection system as well as the hydrant system. But the baseline is the highest demand. So when I say highest demand, it is basically the flow, maximum flow which is required, and at what pressure we need to deliver the water. So the three important parameters, power, flow, and pressure, are very critical while determining the pump performance test. Next slide, please. Now, what is the important goal of a fire pump? So during an emergency, the pump should start automatically. If not automatically, manually it should start. Initiate the necessary signals to alert the responding people. Then supply the required demand, as I said earlier, flow and pressure for controlling the fire. And at the same time, because the fire will take time to control, provide water till that duration. Now, typically what happens is the start of the pump, either manually or automatically, and the signals, those are typically checked by most of the people, most of the organization on a weekly, monthly, or even daily basis. However, when we talk about the performance, whether the flow and pressure are available as per the design, those are the things which needs to be done on an annual basis. And a lot of places we have seen, this is one of the most important missing aspect which needs to be addressed. Next slide. Now, when we say annual fire performance test, which is yearly, so what is the code requirement? Now, before we go to a code requirement, one important characteristics of a fire pump is, which is different than any other water pump or any other process pump, is all the fire pumps are designed to provide 150% of the flow at 65% of the rated pressure. Now this is the very important fire pump characteristics, which is defined by international standards like NFP, NFM, local standards like IS standards, and even earlier TAC. All have defined these characteristics that pump needs to perform at 150% at 65% pressure. And at the same time, what you're looking at the shut-off pressure, which is that shut-off of 140, it's actually a maximum of that. The shut-off pressure should vary from 101 to 140%. Now, standards like NFPA, TAC, formerly TAC, and even OEM, they suggest to do a fire pump performance test on a yearly basis, right? So let's see, and this is the guideline which has been provided. Now, what we have done is we have done sort of a survey. Our organization has done a survey, and we'll see some of the results when we talk about whether the fire pump performance testings are happening or not. So what we have done is we have surveyed around 151 sites, and 83 were industrial, 68 sites were commercial. And then we have done is we have put in certain parameters, or I would say the results, into different categories. One where the test lines were not even installed. Forget about the annual fire pump test, there were no test lines. Now, the another thing is, which is around 14%. Now, maximum, which is 45% of the site, does have a test line. But the thing is, it is a smaller size. Now, what is the adequate size of the test line? We will see again in the later slide when my colleague Darshit will take through the presentation. Now, these are two important infrastructure issues what we have seen. Apart from that, the other bucket of findings are wherever there are test lines which are adequately designed, there were issues where the improper arrangement was there were improper arrangement, including unavailability of control valves, the distance between the flow meter and the control valves, those sort of things. Another thing was, even if they have all the arrangement well as per the design, the other issue was not performing the testing properly, and particularly the main issue was not running the pump till 150%. And finally, even if you do that, whatever data we were getting, the interpretation of data was not happening in a proper manner. So these were the challenges what we have categorized as a human element challenge or the procedural challenge. And there were some sites, around 5% who are doing the correct procedures. Now, in our slide, what we are going to see in our presentation, in fact, how to address the infrastructure issues, and also what are the correct procedures, what needs to be done to perform the fire pump performance test. Next slide, please. Now, before we move into the fire pump testing, how we need to do is, let's see some of the critical pump installation. We are not going to go each and every installation, but some of the important ones. Starting with the suction line. So this is the diesel engine fire pump setup. So we have a suction line with a suction control valve, that is first. Then we have the pressure gauges, which is suction pressure gauges. Then we have a diesel engine, in case this photo is for the diesel engine, so diesel engine fire pump. Then we have a discharge pressure gauge. Then we have pressure relief valve. Again, this is very important. The reason I have highlighted, although it is not part of the fire pump testing, but the setting of this pressure relief valve actually impact the entire pump performance testing. So that's why we have included in this particular slide. The next one is your check valve, followed by your discharge valve. Then you have a test header. Now the test header comprises of the flow meter here in this particular picture. Then we have the jockey pump, which basically uses for maintaining the pressure. Then we have the fire pump controller for auto start of the pump. Then diesel tank, because it's a diesel engine, so diesel engine fuel tank, and finally fire department connection. These are the typical pump room arrangement. So now let's see, what are the different testing methods. There are many ways of doing the fire pump testing. However, what we have done is we have highlighted the top 4, with the methods, and the 5th one is sort of a arrangement where if the other testing methods you do not have, what can be done to address and how it still can be, we can perform the fire pump testing. So let's start with the first testing method. Next slide. So the first method is using a test header. Now what we do is, in this particular, you have a directly on the pump discharge, you have a test header connected with lot of openings, typically a hydrant openings directly connected on the pump discharge header. And then based on the flow, each hydrant point, and accordingly you take the reading. Now how you take the reading is with the help of a pitot tube. In the right hand side picture in the corner, the arrangement, the small picture what you see, that is called as a pitot tube. So the pitot tube basically gives you a pressure, and that pressure is basically converted into a Bernoulli's theorem, using a Bernoulli's theorem into a flow. So this is called as a test header arrangement with portable pitot tube. Portable, the reason being someone has to actually do it. The next method is using the same test header but with a fixed pitot tube. So earlier we have seen a person was holding the pitot tube. In this case, the pitot tube is fixed. So you have, again, in the right hand side picture, the small picture what you see is basically the arrangement of a fixed pitot tube. In this, the person do not have to hold it. It's just you have to connect the hose with the testing apparatus. The next one, please. The third one is the closed loop metering. The reason we say closed loop metering, the pump discharge, in the earlier slide what we have seen was the water was discharging outside the pump room. In this particular closed loop system, the water goes directly back into the fire tank. So there is no such wastage of water. So it's basically a closed loop. Now the reason we said with a portable flow meter, here what you can do is, if you have a test line with adequate size, we can use a flow meter, external flow meter like ultrasound flow meter, and we can still do a testing. So this is called as a closed loop metering with a portable flow meter. The next one is with a fixed flow meter. Again, the similar test line. However, in case of a earlier picture, it was more of a ultrasound flow meter, a portable. Here it will be a fixed flow meter. So it can be either a Venturi type flow meter or a orifice type or a magnetic type. So whatever is type of flow meter, so it is a fixed type flow meter. The next one is the finally is again, if you do not have all those arrangements what we have seen earlier slides, the last one is we can still do a testing through your hydrant points using apparatus like pitot tube and portable flow meter. My colleague Darshit will again guide you how we can use this procedure. Yeah, next slide. Now in this slide, what we are going to do is a small comparison of how these different test methods are there in terms of different parameters like water wastage, involvement of expert, and accuracy, and then accordingly which is the preferred one and what are the options where you can do it, particularly in case of India. Now the first method where we use a test header with a portable tube. Again, because we are using a header and we are discharging water outside, there is a high wastage of water. In the earlier slide, I said there is a person required to take the reading. Now this is very important because the pressure is discharging at a very high pressure, from 8 to 9 bar. Since it is discharging at such a high pressure, it is important that it needs to be done by an expert. So that's why we say that it is good to have a preferred expert on this particular testing. The results, again, depending on how the person is doing, it can be from moderate to good accuracy. And the costing what you typically see are the hiring of an expert. The next procedure is with the fixed pitot tube. Here we have eradicated the involvement of a human for taking a reading. So that's why the accuracy become excellent. The only challenge is such apparatus are not easily available in India. So you have to probably import it, and then you need to have, if you are doing it through a external agency, then you have to hire them on a yearly recurring basis. The third and fourth are basically similar. It's just whether it's a portable flow meter or a fixed flow meter, but it's a closed loop system. Since it's a closed loop system, there are no water wastage. Expert, again, you can do it by yourself, but if you want to have an expert, it is good to have. and the results are excellent. Typically, it shows probably good accurate readings what we are looking when we have done this testing. Costing wise, if you buy, it is usually a one-time cost, and then you require calibration on a yearly basis, but it is usually a one-time cost. But for installing this, if you do not have, then you have to make changes, make arrangements in the existing fire protection system to do this testing. So that could be an additional cost. The last, but not the least, is the hydrant flow. Again, because we are doing through a hydrant port or hydrant points, the flow, there will be wastage of water. Again, with using of pitot tube or of portable flow meter. So again, it is good to have an expert on this. And then accuracy can be, depending on the involvement of an expert, can be moderate to good. Now, all these five arrangements, among the these five arrangements, the top two are usually performed outside India and then require changes in terms of you need to have a header or a portable or a fixed pitot tube. While the third and fourth are usually, which is followed in India, considering no wastage of water, and the results are excellent. However, if you do not have this, there is still an option, which is the option fifth, where you can do that testing using a pitot tube. Now, what we will see in next slide is how we need to do this pump testing. And my colleague Darshit will take these slides forward from here onwards, how to do a fire pump testing, what are the requirements, what is the procedure, and what are the challenges. Darshit, over to you.
Thank you, Anayat. So now, since we have seen the various testing methodologies of how to carry out the annual pump performance testing, so let us look at some of the basic minimum requirements which are needed to do this particular test. The first and the foremost thing is the adequate sizing of the suction, discharge, and the test line. You can see in the table which is highlighted below. These are basically the nominal pipe dimensions or the diameters which are actually required basis the fire pump rating. So as you can see in the leftmost corner, with the increase in the pump capacity, there is also an increase in the dimension of both the suction, discharge, as well as the test line. There are two reasons to it. One, because we do not want turbulence to be acting upon the system, which could actually damage the fire pump. Also, for the annual pump performance test, we would be flowing at least 150% of the rated capacity from each of the pump. Hence, we need to have a test header which is capable enough to flow this requirement. The second thing is the calibrated pressure gauges. So we need pressure gauges so as to measure the suction as well as the discharge pressures. So if these pressure gauges give faulty readings, if they are not calibrated, then the results what we get by doing the test would also be incorrect. Hence, we would require calibrated pressure gauges. As Inayat mentioned earlier, we would also be needing a calibrated flow meter. So this type of a flow meter could be a fixed type of a flow meter, or it could also be a portable type, which we'll be seeing in the subsequent slides. So a tachometer is also required in order to measure the speed of the engine, mainly for testing the diesel engine driven pump. So the tachometer can be a contactless type or it can be a contact type, which you can see in the image. Majority of the sites would also have a speedometer which is already installed with that of the pump. But as consultants, we would always recommend to make use of a calibrated handheld tachometer to do the testing. And you can compare the results with that of the speed which is given by the installed speedometer. If at all both the readings are matching, it is well and good. Else, it is always better to rely on the results which is being provided by the calibrated tachometer. The next is we would be requiring a multimeter or a means basically to measure the voltage as well as amperage readings of the motor. So mainly for an electric motor driven pump. So it can be a voltmeter or an ammeter, which is fixed in that of a pump controller, which you see in the first image, or you can make use of a clamps on ammeter to verify the readings, or you can make use of a multimeter. Why we need this? We'll be looking at it in the subsequent slides. One of the most important parameters which is actually required is the manufacturer's test curve. So each and every pump which has been installed has its own characteristic curve. It is basically a plot of pressure versus the flow. So whatever results we get by conducting this kind of an annual performance test, we need to compare this result to this manufacturer's test curve. So if the readings are in line, or if there is a huge variation, basis this comparison only, we would be able to say if the pump is performing well or the performance is inadequate. So like Inayat was saying, since there are other areas or other means to test the fire pump, and if the test line is not going back into the tank, we'll also have to make arrangements in order to refill the fire water tank after the fire pump test is done. If we are testing 1 pump, 2 pumps, 3 pumps, then since we are flowing 150% of the rated capacity, the fire water tank would be drained for conducting the test. Hence, we would be requiring to refill the same. And lastly, we would need arrangements in order to refill the diesel day tank, mainly for the diesel engine driven pump. Now let us look into the testing procedure for conducting an annual pump performance test by making use of a fixed flow meter. So in this particular illustration, we are considering a fire pump room which comprises of 3 pumps. One is an electric motor driven pump, one is a diesel engine driven pump, and one is a jockey pump. This setup can either be for a sprinkler system or for a hydrant system. Again, this is just an illustration. We do know that majority of the sites might not have a similar condition, or they might have more number of pumps as well. So the first and the foremost thing what we do is we start with a physical evaluation of the entire pump room to see if there is adequate amount of lighting available, to see if the pump operator has access to to test or try the valves for the pump operator to move around the pump room. That is the first basic step before starting the test. And also in this testing, in this annual fire pump performance test, we would need to flow water at different points. So there are 3 basic points wherein we flow the water and record the pressure readings. So which is at churn, that is at 0% flow, at rated capacity, which is at 100% flow, and finally at 150% of the rated capacity. Since we know the rating of the pump beforehand, we can make use of the table which is as indicated below to record our readings. The table can be used for both a diesel engine driven pump as well as for an electric motor driven pump. So since we know the values, these values can be populated in the table before the start of the test. Now let us consider the layout what we discussed in the earlier slide. If you can follow my mouse pointer, the layout what we are considering is just for an illustration, and this might not be the layout at your site, but the basic idea behind doing the test can be seen using this particular illustration. Please do follow my mouse pointer. So this is the fire water tank. The fire water tank is connected to the pumps using a suction header. So there is a connection which is there, although it is not visible. Please do assume that it is connected. So this suction header runs all the way into the diesel engine driven pump. The suction pipe also runs all the way into the electric motor driven pump. Both the pumps have a common discharge header, which is here. And the discharge from both the pumps flow into the common discharge header, which in turn flows into the hydrant system and into the sprinkler system. You can also see that there is another pipe which runs here, which is from the diesel engine driven pump, which is connected to the testing header. Again, the discharge side of the electric motor driven pump also runs all the way into the testing header. This testing header comprises of a flow meter which is given here, and you also have a control valve. This is a gear operated butterfly valve. So this is the valve which we would be controlling in order to get the flows. And once and this pipe is connected all the way back into the tank, which is going back to the source. So in this particular illustration, there is no amount of water which is being wasted. Also, you can see that there are pressure relief valves which have been provided in this setup. So we'll look into that in the subsequent slides. So since we are doing the testing procedure for the diesel engine driven pump, let us see what needs to be done. The first and the foremost thing is to notify the site team as well as the fire brigade about the test being done, and during the test the fire pumps would be impaired. And we also don't want the site team to open any of the hydrant valves when the test is being conducted. And they would be mindful that the test is going on, and there would be extra vigilance which can be which needs to be put in during the test because the fire protection system is impaired. We would also need to operate some of the valves. So commonly the discharge side of both the pumps would actually be in open condition. But since we are testing a diesel engine driven pump, we don't want the water discharged from the diesel engine driven pump to feed into the discharge header. Instead, we want that particular water to flow all the way into the testing header. So the X's indicate the valves which need to be closed, and the circles indicate the valves which we will be keeping in open condition for carrying out this test. The next thing is to keep the jockey pump as well as the electric motor driven pump in manual mode and to start the diesel engine driven pump automatically. So once the diesel engine driven pump starts automatically, you can see the water gets sucked into the suction header, and this is how the water would flow. Since we have kept the electric motor driven pump in manual mode, that the electric motor would not be discharging any amount of water. Hence, the water would only be discharged by the diesel engine driven pump which is running. Since we have closed the the valve at the discharge side of the diesel engine, the only way for the water to now enter is along the testing header. As you can see, we have also closed the valve which is connected to the testing header from the electric motor, which is this particular valve, as a result of which the water would again not flow in this direction and feed into the discharge header. Since a butterfly valve is also closed at this particular point, the water is also not going back into the tank. So this is the step wherein we take the readings for the churn condition. So let us assume that the pump is a 2800 LPM pump. So the readings what I'll be looking for in the flow meter would be 0 at churn condition, 2800 LPM at rated capacity, which is 100%, and 4200 LPM at 150%, which is 1.5 times of 2800. So once this is established, so we record the readings for the churn condition, which is by making, so we will be recording the speed by making use of the tachometer. We would record the discharge as well as the suction pressures from the pressure gauges, and the net head would basically be the difference between the two. So once this is done, you can also see in the right hand side that there is another column. There are two columns which says RPM adjusted LPM and net head. For a diesel engine, the speed of the engine is not constant. The speed actually varies with the flow, and we need to be mindful of recording or adjusting the head as well as the flow with that of the speed. For this, we make use of the affinity law. So you can actually see the affinity law, which is shown for the head calculation. Similarly, we also use another affinity law to calculate the flow as well. Apart from this, so which is as shown here. So apart from this, another important parameter what we need to consider is, since it is a diesel engine driven pump, we need to be very mindful to see if the speed of the engine is set to the rated speed what is indicated in the name tag. So what we do here is we start the pump, we flow 100% of water and see what speed we are getting from the engine. If that speed is not matching or is not nearer to the nameplate speed, we will have to adjust the speed setting, because without that the results what we get in the subsequent process will actually be wrong. So let's say that if the pump is rated for 1800 RPM and if the engine is rated for 1800 RPM and at 100% flow we get a speed of 1700 RPM. So there we'll have to adjust the speed nearer towards 1800 RPM and then carry out the test. And also during the test, if at all there is water flowing from the relief valve, which we saw earlier in the illustration, we'll have to terminate the test and we'll have to see figure out the reason as to why the relief valve is flowing water. So moving on. So now, since we have gotten the readings for the churn condition, we will slowly start opening the butterfly valve, which is indicated in the, which is highlighted in the yellow as shown. So we start opening the butterfly valve, and we note the reading which is being given at the flow meter. Once the reading approaches 2800 LPM and it stabilizes, we take the Willow readings. So again, we'll have to check the speed, we'll have to check the discharge as well as the suction pressure readings, and the calculations for the RPM adjusted can be done at the end of the test. Once the rated flow reading is obtained, we again need to open the butterfly valve so as to flow 4200 LPM, which is our 150% rated capacity. Once the reading showcases in the flow meter and the reading stabilizes, we again record the speed, the discharge, as well as the suction pressure heads. Also, please do note that the percent of rated capacity, what we are flowing, these are basically nominal points. So since we have to draw a curve at the end of the pump test, we consider 3 points. So ideally, these 3 points are usually taken, but this is not the case, and we can make use of other flow parameters like 50%, 100, 125% as well. So more the number of points, more smoother the curve. So once these readings are recorded, we slowly close the control valve and we shut down the pump manually. We normalize the system back into its original state. We put the jockey in the auto mode and let the jockey pump build the pressure back into the system. We notify the site team as well as the fire brigade about the completion of the test, and we close the we put the valves back to its original position and also close the impairment permit. So after this, let us assume that we have gotten the below readings and the rated speed of the engine as per the nameplate of this pump, what we've considered is 1800 RPM. So let's say these values have been gotten by the procedure what we done earlier. So, and after this, we calculate the RPM adjusted head as well as the flow. Here we make use of the affinity law. So as you can see, I've substituted the values for the rated engine of the speed which is shown in the table, and the net head what we have gotten in the during the test. So once this is substituted, we get a value which is the adjusted head. So similarly, we carry out this process for the other 2 readings as well. And also we calculate the LPM, the RPM adjusted LPM as well, which will be these values. So once these values are obtained, what we do is we need to plot a graph of the net head versus the rated capacity, which is basically the pressure versus the flow. Instead of making use of the flow, we can also plot the graph using the percentage of the rated capacity. It's just that the x-axis will have consistent readings across, and it is much more easier to see. That is the only reason. So once we plot this particular curve, so you can see a dotted curve which is there, which is nothing but the shop curve or the manufacturer's test curve. So we plot these 3 readings. So at 0 flow, we have 145, which is our pressure reading. And at 100% flow, we've got 125, which is the second point here. And at 150% flow, we have the third point, which is around 113 PSI. So we draw a freehand curve to connect the points. Once this is done, we'll have to compare this curve with that of the manufacturer's test curve to see how much is the variance and to say if the pump is performing or it is underperforming. So this is basically the behavior. This slide actually indicates the behavior of the field test curve. The red-orange curve, what you can see with the square box, is basically the manufacturer's shop curve. So this is nothing but the characteristic curve which the manufacturer would have given a site during the installation as well as the commissioning. So you can see 3 different curves, which is as shown in the graph. So one is the field test curve, which is the green curve, which is similar to that of the manufacturer's shop curve. So here the pump is performing exactly the same as that of the manufacturer's test curve. The second field test curve is basically the blue curve, what you see. So you can see that the readings are almost nearer towards the manufacturer's test curve till the rated capacity, but as soon as 100% rated capacity is reached, there is a huge drop in the curve. And the last curve is a similar curve what we have seen in our test as well, wherein there is a drop from the beginning of the test until the end. So from 0% till the 150%, there has been a consistent drop in the pressure readings. So this would be the underperformance. So what basically we are trying to say here is different types of pumps have different manufacturer test curves, and while conducting the test, the results can vary from perfect to a lot of variation when in comparison to that of the manufacturer's test curve. So once these readings are obtained and once we have plotted the graph, we verify the variance. So if the variance is well within 5%, we say the pump is performing well when we make use of NFPA standards. Whereas FM Global standards say that if the pump performs within 10% of the variance, the pump's performance is considered to be satisfactory. But we as consultants would always recommend to keep this particular parameter as minimum as possible and as close as possible to the manufacturer's test curve. So it needs to be at least well within 5% of the variance. If this is not, let's say that the pump has underperformed during this test. So although we have seen the results which has been an underperformance, please don't be disheartened. We can, since this is a closed loop system wherein water is not being discharged out, we can redo the test again to see if the readings are changing. If at all we get the similar readings as that of the earlier test, then we'll have to investigate the reasons as to why there has been an underperformance in the pump, and we'll have to take corrective measures. Also, during the entire course of the test, we will need to monitor the fire pump operation for any unusual noise, excessive vibrations. We'll also have to note down other parameters, since this is a diesel engine driven pump, in terms of the oil pressure, the operating speed, the water as well as the oil temperature, if that is within the acceptable range. And also we'll need to verify the casing of the pump if at all the casing is overheating during the entire course of the test. So if any of these drawbacks are seen during the testing, it is always suggestive to terminate the test and rectify the issues. I would not be going in detail while giving the procedure for doing an electric motor driven pump test, an annual performance of an electric motor driven pump, because majority of the steps remain the same. However, there are a few changes which you can see in the table. So please do concentrate on the right hand side, which specifically points out the steps for the electric motor driven pump. So in case of an electric motor driven pump, instead of keeping the diesel in auto mode, we keep the diesel in manual mode and we start the electric motor pump automatically. So apart from taking the reading of the speed, we'll also be taking the readings of the motor voltage as well as the current. So the figure indicates a typical nameplate of an electric motor. You can see that there are two parameters, which is the voltage and current, which is indicated in the nameplate. So while conducting the test, we will have to be mindful to ensure that during the entire course of the test, the voltage as well as the current readings do not go beyond the values which is given in the nameplate. Although there is a service factor which is involved in with each of the motor, which varies from 1.05 to 1.15. We as consultants would not recommend you to multiply these voltage and current readings with that of the service factor and overload the motor, because we don't want any damage to happen to the motor. And also the cables what we are using during this particular test for an electric motor driven pump also needs to be rated similar to that of the motor itself, so that the cables don't overheat and we don't burn up the cables as well during the testing. Apart from this, the rest of the procedure remains the same in terms of operating of the butterfly valve or the control valve to obtain the readings of 100% and 150% of the rated capacity. But instead of plotting, so we don't calculate any RPM adjusted head or flow here, because the speed of the motor is constant, is almost constant. And finally, we instead of plotting the graph of the RPM adjusted net head, which we do in versus the capacity, which we do in case of an diesel engine driven pump, we directly plot the results of the net head versus the percentage rated capacity, and we verify the results with that of the manufacturer's test curve. So let us look into another methodology of doing the test, wherein we flow water from the hydrants and we measure the flow in by making use of a pitot tube. So this slide basically gives the procedure of how to carry out the test. The first and the foremost thing is we would need to identify the hydrants which are more closer towards the pump room, because if at all there are any issues which the pump operator sees during the testing, we do not want, we can easily terminate the test. And also the hydrants what we select to flow the water should be in such a place wherein since we are flowing the water from the hydrant outside, we don't want to flood the site or any areas within the site. So this needs to be looked into. Again, we do a similar visual check of the entire fire pump room to verify if there is adequate amount of lighting, if the pump operator can easily move around, and the valves are easily accessible. And again, if there is a relief valve which has been provided on the pump, we will just need to ensure that the relief valve does not flow any amount of water during the entire course of the test. So we partially open 1 or 2 hose valves to start the pump automatically. And we also see the general operation of both the pump as well as the driver. Once this is set up, so we start opening the hydrant. So as you can see in the picture, we open the hydrants and we insert the pitot tube to check the pitot pressure. So this is ideally a table what we usually use to carry out this particular test. There are 2 columns which are different. One is the size and number of hose nozzles what we are using, and the pitot pressure what we get. NFPA as well as FM Global Standards have these types of tables, which is basically a theoretical discharge which is obtained through a circular orifice. And you can see different orifice diameters which has been given here. And this is basically the pitot pressure, what the reading we get from the pitot tube. So once, let's say that we get a reading of 22 psi in the pitot tube, and we make use of an orifice which is 44 mm in dia. So so what we get, the typical flow what we get there is 1620 LPM. So we record the flow to be 1620 LPM. Similarly, we open another hydrant point, we take the readings. So as and when more number of hydrant points get opened up, there is a drop in pressure which will be seen in the pitot tube, and correspondingly we take the reading for 1620 LPM in this particular table for the suction as well as the discharge pressures. And this process is repeated to obtain multiple points so that a curve can actually be drawn and plotted, and the curve can be compared with that of the manufacturer's test curve. The only drawback for conducting this particular test is the amount of water which is used or utilized for running 150% of the rated capacity will be higher. So hence we would need to look into refilling the fire water tank as soon as the test is completed. Now let us look into some of the reasons where the pump has underperformed. So if there is during the design phase, if the consideration of the net positive suction head is not considered, so net positive suction head is basically the minimum suction pressure which will prevent the vaporization of the water. The vaporization would lead to cavitation, which in turn would lead to the pump's underperformance. If at all we have the suction piping itself which is undersized. So as you saw earlier in the requirement slide, wherein we saw that the pipe dimensions go on increasing with that of the rated capacity of the pump. If an undersized suction pipe has been installed, the pump would not be able to, the suction side of the pump would not be able to draw a certain amount of water, and hence the discharge would not be in line, which would result in an underperformance. Also, if there is any blockage which is there in the suction side of the pump, it can be debris which has been collected within the tank. It can be debris within the suction piping itself. That would again lead to an underperformance of the pump. The measuring instruments what we are using to conduct the test, if these instruments itself are not calibrated, then the readings what we get from these instruments would be faulty. That would result in faulty readings, and hence the end result would be that the pump is underperforming. If at all there is air which has gotten trapped inside the casing or the piping of the pump, that would actually result in the underperformance. And another important factor is the trimming of the impeller. If the impeller provided inside the casing is not of the adequate size, the spacing difference between the casing and the impeller would be more. With more the spacing, lesser would be the pressure which is delivered by the pump, and hence the underperformance. And lastly, the undersized prime mover. If the diesel engine or the electric motor is undersized for the pump which has been installed at the facility, the prime mover would not be able to run the pump, because of which because at the required pressure and flow, because of which there is again an underperformance which could result when we do this annual performance testing. So the last slide actually indicates some of the parameters what we have seen, which were the reasons because which is not there in any standard, but by following these practices, the test results can be more accurate, as well as deeming the pump to be underperforming could be avoided. One is because of the failure of usage of the calibrated measuring instruments. It could be your pressure gauges, the tachometer, as well as the flow meter, what we saw earlier. If at all we record incorrect readings, so if at all the reading which is shown by the tachometer or the pressure gauge is not correctly recorded during the testing phase, that could again result in faulty results coming up at the end. So incorrect speed setting, like I said earlier, mainly for a diesel engine driven pump, we need to check what the speed of the diesel engine is set at. So if the nameplate says 1800 RPM is the speed of the engine, we'll need to ensure that at 100% flow, the speed is at least near to 1800 RPM. So if it is not, that would result in inaccurate test results while doing the annual pump performance test. Also, inconsistent use of the measurement units, like mixing of both metric as well as imperial units while doing the calculations. That could result in wrong results and hence deeming the pump to be underperforming. Failure to correct the pressure and flow for the rated pump, as we saw earlier for a diesel engine driven pump, wherein we corrected the flow as well as the head by making use of the affinity law. If that is not done, the readings what we are getting would be incorrect. And finally, the omission to overall conclusion as to performance. This is the basic mistake. So after concluding the entire test, the results have to be always looked into with respect to that of the manufacturer's test curve, and the results have to be compared. If this comparison is not being done, that would again result in in an inadequate completion, which would not result in the completion of the test, as a result of which we would not be able to finally say what the results are, if the pump is performing well or it is underperforming. So these are some of the simple steps which can be taken so as to prevent the pump from underperforming. And an annual pump performance test would be critical to verify the healthiness of the heart of the fire protection system, so that adequate amount of pressure as well as adequate amount of flow is available in case of a fire scenario, which would in turn help in preventing loss of lives as well as damage to property. So with this, we conclude our session for today and open up the floor for the Q&A session. Over to you, Kale sir.
Thank you, Darshit, for a wonderful session and great insights. I hope I am audible, Darshit.
Yeah, Kale sir.
Yeah, so there's one.
Yes.
There are number of questions we have under question tab, and I request all the attendees, if you have any such questions, please type under the question tab. The first one comes from KVM Nagendra Kumarji. He's asking which BIS standard is suggesting annual pump performance test. Inayat, would you like to answer?
Yeah, so IS standard do not directly recommend to have the annual performance test, but the IS 15301, yeah, it tells you to do a performance test when the pump is being installed and then do a weekly and daily checks. However, the former standard, which is the TAC, Tariff Advisory Committee, that standard used to recommend to do a performance on an annual basis. At the same time, OEMs, in their manual, if you see, they suggest to do this annual performance test when doing the overhauling of the pump. So, in a nutshell, IS do not directly say, but yeah, the TACs, NFPAs, and even OEMs suggest to have these annual performance tests.
Okay, great. So there is another connecting question from Mr. Nageshwara Jingam.
Yes, Abba Saab, I would request if you can switch off your video, your audio will work better. Switch off your video, Abba Saab. Hello, Abba Saab. Anup, can you look into the matter?
Sir, he is offline right now.
Acha, okay. I think there is some technical issue. Maybe his internet is not working. So, meanwhile, Anup, please share the screen with me so that I'll share something about GEM Green Building Certification Program. Yeah. So my screen is visible. Anup, please, take the control back and then again share with me. Just a minute. इतना बैकग्राउंड में जा रहा है.
तो विजिबल है सर आपका स्क्रीन?
अच्छा, ओके ओके, ठीक है, ठीक है. अभी
सर आपने वेबकैम को ना ऑलवेज फ्रंट करा हुआ है, दैट्स व्हाई.
ओके, सो अभी विजिबल है? माय
Yes,
स्क्रीन इज
sir.
विजिबल?
यस सर, प्लीज सर फुल स्क्रीन पे कर दीजिए सर.
हाँ, हो रहा है अभी, शायद हो जाएगा अभी थोड़ी देर में. ओके, सो इट इज GEM reference guide which is showing. Yeah. So, dear friends, as I told you that ASSOCHAM has a GEM Green Building Certification Program. So, we have this GEM Green Building Certification Program, which is for the buildings and built environment. So, this is what we can see on the screen is the second version of the reference guide for GEM Sustainability Certification Rating Program. So, ASSOCHAM is basically the oldest apex chamber of India, and it has more than 450,000 industry members with us. So the members that we have all are industry members, and we have around 80 plus councils over various sectors. Like we have one from GEM Green Building Certification Program and education and all others. And these local chambers, regional chambers like Bombay Chamber of Commerce, Cochin Chamber of Commerce, Indian Chamber of Commerce, PhD, and MCCI are the promoter chambers and the members of ASSOCHAM. So by that way, we have around 450,000 direct and indirect members across India. And as I told you that ASSOCHAM has a green initiative, GEM Green Building Certification Program. So ASSOCHAM has taken a green initiative to care for the Mother Earth and to complement India's sustainability movement. And we have formed a Council for Green and Eco-Friendly Movement that executes the GEM Green Building Certification Program with the objective to promote environment-friendly green building design and construction. And this GEM Green Building Certification Program is based upon latest version of ECBC 2017 and NBC 2016. So, and this program includes sustainability, energy and water efficiency, fire and life safety, more greener area, indoor air quality, daylight, fresh air, and all. So, friends, this is the first program in India, first indigenous program, I must say, which has fire and life safety in it, No other green building certification program talks about fire and life safety. And this program is based upon the latest version of ECBC 17 and NBC 16. So by this way, this program is so smartly designed, and it has 5 levels of rating. One is the GEM 5, then GEM 4, then 3, 2, and 1. So 5 is the highest one. It has maximum 135 points, and if any project achieves 105 above, it will achieve GEM 5 rating, and so on. This GEM Green Building Certification Program is for housing and urban development, residential, commercial, hotel, office, school, universities, and all, factories and all. So this, like we have the star rating for electronic equipment, we have the ratings for the buildings as well. So this GEM provides GEM Green Building Certification rating to all types of buildings, as mentioned: housing, urban development, residential, commercial, hotels, hospitals, universities, factories, and all. So all existing, under construction, upcoming buildings can apply for GEM Green Building Certification rating. And this certificate we provide to the certified GEM compliant buildings, the buildings that are fulfilling the GEM requirements, green building certification, green building requirements. We provide this kind of certificate to them. And this is the certificate. I mean, I'm sure we all are engineers and professionals. So this certificate is this training program is specially for you, friends. ASSOCHAM GEM conducts the GEM Sustainability Green Building Certification Program for the architects, engineers, professionals, energy and environment consultants, and all others. So this is an online training and examination. So we are going to conduct this online training on GEM Green Building Certification Program on 8th of August and at 11 a.m. So please join us for this training. I'll share the details with you over email after the program. Otherwise, the fees is 5,000 plus tax, but for now, the fees for the program is 3,500 only. So I would request all of the engineers, professionals to register for this training, online training and online examination. You can register for the training right now, and you can take the examination anytime in future from your home or offices. So you can take the examination anytime in future after 1 month, 2 months, or like that. Next, we have signed MOUs with ISHRE, FSCI, IAQA, India chapter, ASHRE Western chapter, Smart Habitat Foundation, ISLE, and GSES as well. So GSES, I mean, we have signed MOUs with GSES, and that's why we are conducting joint trainings on such technical subjects with GSES. Friends, these are some upcoming webinars of ASSOCHAM. Another webinar is on 5th of August from 3 to 5 p.m. tomorrow. So please join us for this program. Wonderful webinar. Next, we have a training on need for efficient design and fire safety in sustainable buildings on 6th of August. This program we are doing with the Manipal University, Jaipur, and ASSOCHAM and ASME, American Society for Mechanical Engineers. And friends, as I was talking to you, we are conducting GEM Green Building Certification Program online training, and then the examination on 8th of August. So please join us for this. We have a wonderful team of speakers on that day, and we are getting support from ISLE and IE, Institute of Engineers, as well. Friends, ASSOCHAM conducts this National Engineering Olympiad also for our mechanical, electrical, computer science, civil, electronics engineers, electrical engineers. So please join us for this Engineering Olympiad as well. I'll be sharing the detail with you on your email ID, registered email ID. So please join us. Thank you so much. Now I would request if Abba Saab ji is back. Please take the control back, Anup. Yeah. So if Abba Saab ji is back, or no?
I think if he can, no, he is not there. So if he can share can have an access to the question, I can.
Actually, the questions were with Abba Saab. So
okay. Anyway, so Neeraj ji, I think till the time he joins, so we will, whatever are the questions, we will get back to those questions or an email. We will reply on those questions as well.
NIJ, I think I can take some questions. I can now.
Sure,
I have the access for the questions. So
sure,
I would like to ask, what is the standard the PRV set points for diesel engines driven and electrical driven pumps? So if you can answer.
So typically what happens is for the diesel engine driven pump, now the requirement of PRV is such that if you have your system, when you design the fire pump, and if the discharge pressure, shutoff pressure is exceeding the component pressure, which is component pressure of your fire protection system, then you require a PRV, pressure relief valve. Or in case of a diesel engine pump, where you do not have a overspeed feature, there you require a pressure relief valve. So typically it is recommended to have a pressure relief valve set just less than the fire protection component design pressure, which is around 12.5 bar or 175 psi, and it should be slightly higher than 175 psi or 12.5 bar, say around 13 psi or 180 psi.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm hopeful. So, I mean, in the meantime, I would like to thank you all our attendees. That I mean, we got around 900 plus registrations for this webinar, and I can still see 400 plus attendees listening to us. So, our next question is, what is the recommended process? Do we need to have strainer in each suction line connecting between the pumps and the tank, or can it be drawn with common strainer and connect all suction lines?
Right. So the important thing is the need of a strainer. Now, when we have done a lot of testing, we found that one of the important major reason for underperformance of the pumps are strainers as well. If you do not clean the strainer on a regular basis, we have seen the choked strainers have actually contributed of not giving the correct results. So typically, we recommend, if your fire protection tank, fire water tank is a closed tank, and the only way the dirt or mud can come in is through your supply. So rather than having a strainer in the suction, if we can have the strainer in the supply line of the water to the tank, that will avoid unnecessary strainer in the suction line. In any case, if you have the suction strainer due to various reasons, it is ideally recommended to have the strainer at least 10 times the diameter, 10D diameter of the suction line, and you can have either a common strainer or individual strainers. An individual strainer is more preferred over a common strainer because it is unlikely that all the strainer, if you have forgot, will get choked. So it's the probability of a strainer getting choked in individual pumps are lesser compared to a common. So that is what our take is.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we have sufficient time. So I think I can take 2 more questions if you allow.
Sure.
Yeah. So next question is, can we also test the pump performance by connecting test line from fire overhead tank to discharge header of pumps? And this question is from Ashish Kumar Sharma. Ji. Yeah.
So Darshit, you want to take this question?
If I understand the question correctly, it's just that the fire water tank is at a height, and there is some gravitational pressure which is being provided during the suction. So since we consider the suction pressure which is available in the suction gauge, which would be deducted while calculating the net head, we can still do the test. So we can do the test, since we would anyways be removing the suction pressure which is being provided by the gravitational force from the tank.
And if I'll extend the answer, so if the question is for an overhead tank, which is above the building, so if the question is whether we can connect the pump discharge to the overhead tank, which is level, so in that case, if we do that, you need to understand we are flowing the pump at a 150% pressure. If we do that, what will happen is the overhead tank will get flooded in a very easily or in a faster manner, so that it will eventually flow. So it's not a really good idea until unless you have a balancing line which will balance the overhead flow to the lower ground tanks.
Okay. Okay. So I think one more question. I'll take the last question. So this is from Nawab Jan Sheikh Khalil, and the question is: we are planning to install new DG pump, but existing suction line and new pump base frame is 120 mm height difference. Please advise. I mean, this is a very practical and technical question. So
I think Darshit, you want to take this question?
when either whether the question is incomplete or so.
I think more importantly, if we can have more details on that project, probably we're better position to respond because it's very specific, site specific
question. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, no problem. So I think with this we should close this technical and question answer session, if you allow.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, audience. This was really a very wonderful technical session. It was a pure technical session, and I'm thankful to ASSOCHAM GEM Green Building Council team and Global Association for Corporate Services that with the joint efforts we could able to conduct this technical session. And dear audience, rest assured you can send us your questions on email as well. So we will be happy to answer your questions. And as we have told you that as we have signed MOU with JSCS for conducting technical trainings. So in this reference, this was our first technical session, and our next technical session is on 10th of August. So we will be sharing the technical details, all the details from where you can join the webinar with you over email. So please spare your time for 10th of August as well. On 10th of August, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., we will be conducting this technical program again on some different topic. Now, I would like to extend my vote of thanks to Shri Abba Sahab Kaleji, Joint Secretary, Disaster Management, GSES, and Executive Vice President, Marshall Advisory India Insurance Brokers Private Limited. And thank you so much, the eminent speakers with us. I can see that you were very confidently answering all the questions, and your presentation was absolutely extremely well, because there were 400 plus attendance all the time. So this is amazing, really amazing on this working day. So I'm thankful to Mr. Inayat Mizwan and Mr. Darshit. Thank you so much for the technical trainings. And as soon as we will receive the questions from the audience, we will share with you, and you can please answer those questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, team GSES and team ASSOCHAM GEM Council. Thank you so much. Now we will officially close the program. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.